Centennial Building. When the Dallas State Fair made its only appearance in 1886, the year before it merged to become the State Fair of Texas, one of the main attractions was a wooden structure called the Exposition Building, despite the fact that there was no exposition. Its 140,000 feet of space served as a marketplace for companies and individuals wanting to sell their products that included pianos, alcohol, clothing, trunks, jewelry, saddles, sewing machines, hardware, quilts, and tobacco. It became the perfect place for exhibits, meetings, reunions, and public events when not being used for the fair. In 1902, a blazing fire burned the structure to the ground, forcing officials to build a new one. Construction began in 1905 and opened at its current location the following year. Everyone called it the Exposition Building for 30 years. During that time, it served as a place for individuals, small businesses, and corporations to promote and sell their products at the State Fair. Things would change in 1936 with the Texas Centennial Exposition. For the grand celebration, the Exposition Building had an extra wing added to it, while the exterior was completely remodeled to reflect the popular art style of the time. In addition, statues were sculpted and placed in front of the three main entrances facing the Esplanade Pool. George Dahl wanted the artwork to represent the nations that ruled over Texas at one time or the other. There would be 3 statuaries for the Exposition Building and 3 for the structure on the other side. Designed by Lawrence Tenney Stevens, the 20-foot female figures stood in front of a portico that covered each of the entrances. During the Centennial, the main section was called the Travel and Transportation Building, and the new wing was called the Chrysler Building. Dahl decided it would be best to have artwork at each portico that reflected the structure's theme. He picked Carlo Ciampaglia to complete the task, resulting in the composition of 6 wall murals in the Art Deco style. Although the exact year remains a mystery, the public started referring to the vast structure as the Centennial Building after the 2 expositions ended. In 1942, its mirror image on the other side of the Esplanade Pool burned to the ground. There were no plans for reconstructing the murals for the planned replacement, so officials decided to paint over Carlo Ciampaglia's paintings at the Centennial Building. This would allow the 2 structures to mirror each other. The paint began flaking in the early 1960s, resulting in another layer of paint. This practice continued until there were 6 coats covering the artwork. Efforts to restore the murals began in 1999. Founded by Scott Haskins, Fine Art Conservation Laboratories, a specialized company which had been in business since the 1970s, faced the difficult task of recovering the centennial remnants of the Centennial Building. Haskins also had to deal with all the other neglected artwork in Fair Park. The restoration was a long, hard process that was successfully completed in 2000. The first portico that visitors encounter when arriving from the main entrance belongs to Spain. Its flag flew over Texas from 1519 to 1685 and 1690 to 1821. The nation's interest in Texas was minimal at best during the first part of its occupation. It all started with explorer Cabeza de Vaca, whose name means cow's head. His venture into North America in 1527 resulted in the starvation, death, and enslavement of everyone who joined him. Only 4 managed to escape their captors, various tribal bands living in the Galveston region. Esteban returned from his ordeal with stories of golden cities. This eventually led to the Coronado Expedition of 1540. In addition to exploring the untouched wilderness of North America, Francisco de Coronado sought to settle the validity of the stories of gold and riches. His journey led him through the Texas Panhandle. When he returned home, Coronado faced a series of inquiries where he revealed that no riches could be found. Interest in Texas quickly faded with the exception of maybe a few missions. This all changed when France tried to colonize the area. Spain reacted by sending priests into the region to convert the native people and setting up small colonies. Spain's territorial reign ended with the establishment of Mexico. To the right of the Spanish portico is a cement bas-relief featuring a man, an eagle, train wheels, and railroad tracks. The artwork as a whole symbolizes the conflict between nature and machine, or reflects the power necessary to move a train, depending on who is consulted as the interpreter. It was made from the hands of a French artist named Pierre van Parijs-Bourdelle. Born in Paris, he worked under the guidance of Auguste Rodin after fighting in World War I and studied at 2 schools in the capital city. In 1929, he moved to America and made large-scale paintings, murals, and reliefs in New York City during the 1930s and 1940s. Bourdelle, however, performed many tasks outside the city. The Texas Exposition was one of them. The second portico represents the Confederacy. Its flag flew over Texas from 1861 to 1865. The issue of secession was a contentious one of Texas, sometimes leading to violence. In the end, the state legislature voted in favor of the proposition and removed Governor Sam Houston from office because of his opposition. The former republic's first president disappeared from the public scene and stayed in Huntsville until he died from pneumonia in 1863. Texas played an important part in providing food and raw materials for the South. The North tried to prevent this from happening by sending its Navy forces to Galveston as part of a blockade along the Gulf of Mexico. As part of the Texas Coast Division, Commander William B. Renshaw led 8 ships to capture Galveston in October 1862. The Union boats barraged Fort Point after they received several ineffective shots. Looking at the situation, Joseph J. Cook, who was in charge of the Confederate fortifications, came to the conclusion that the stronghold could not be successfully defended. He asked Renshaw for a 4-day truce and got it. After the agreement went into effect, Cook spent his time sending all the men and supplies to the nearby coast. The Union forces took control of the harbor, but they did not move inland until December. Meanwhile, Major General John B. Magruder was sent to retake Galveston Bay. Wanting to redeem himself after his poor performance during the 7 Days Campaign, Magruder made his plans in Houston. He then moved his forces and attacked on New Year's Day. One force would attack by land while another force would assault the Navy. Things did not go well. After the army was pushed back, one of the 2 Confederate ships fell into the watery depths. Outnumbered 6-1, all seemed lost until the Bayou City managed to sink one of the ships. Renshaw's own vessel got stuck on a sandbar, and a truce was issued. The Union commander destroyed his ship during the respite so it wouldn't fall into enemy hands. Unfortunately, he died from the explosion. This series of events convinced the remaining naval crews to escape and retreat. Weary of fighting, the Confederate forces decided not to pursue them. This victory allowed Galveston to remain an open port for trade throughout the war. Going past the second portico, visitors will encounter the second bas-relief made by Pierre Bourdelle. Showing a man being carried by an angel, the artwork symbolizes air travel. The final portico of the Centennial building represents the Republic of Texas. Its flag flew over Texas from 1836 to 1845. The period began with the victory over the Mexican army led by Santa Anna, leading to the end of the Texas Revolution. On April 21st, the Mexican president and his men were taking a peaceful rest during the late afternoon at San Jacinto. General Sam Houston learned about the respite and decided to take advantage of the situation. Under his command, the Texans took the opposing forces by complete surprise, resulting in a battle that lasted only 18 minutes. A day later, Santa Anna was captured while retreating and forced into signing a treaty which recognized Texas independence. Upon becoming an independent nation, the Texas government formed a constitution very similar to the one used by the United States. The document called for an executive branch, headed by a president who would stay in office for 3 years. However, the person could not run for re-election. The Congress consisted of the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House would have 20 to 40 members until the country's population reached 100,000. Afterward, it would be allowed to have 40 to 100 representatives. The Senate had no set number of politicians. The Constitution said that the body need to have at least 1/3 of the number of House representatives, but not exceed 50% of that same amount. There was a Supreme Court like the United States, but it had 5 judges instead of 9. The President appointed the Chief Justice, and the Congress picked the remaining 4. All of them served a period of 4 years, but they could be re-elected unlike the executive branch. The new nation faced the problem of settlement raiding by the various Indian tribes, the Comanche and Cherokee being the most active among them. Making things worse, 2 approaches clashed over the issue of what to do about the attacks. Sam Houston and his supporters wanted peace and advocated making treaties, while Mirabeau B. Lamar's group favored a militaristic response. With a different leader every 3 years, one side would cancel out the work of the other. In the end, Houston won the battle with a successful treaty involving the remaining tribes. The problem with the Native Americans was nothing compared to the financial difficulties facing the new nation. By the time Texas finally won its independence, the government had acquired a debt reaching over $1 million. There was no currency at the moment, so it had to rely on banknotes. This wasn't helped by a complicated bank system and the ever-increasing deficit. The government eventually printed money, which became known as redbacks. Unfortunately, they only survived for 3 years. This lack of a strong financial backbone forced the government to rely on the sale of land for the funding of its programs and daily functions. While this was going on, many people wanted to annex Texas to the United States. Indeed, there was a call for such action even before the nation won its independence. The members of the First Congress voted on the matter with a majority in favor of joining the Union. However, the political environment in America prevented annexation from happening. Sam Houston brought the matter to President John Tyler in 1844, and a law was passed the following year, making Texas the 28th state. The third bordel relief is located to the right of the final portico. It depicts a bison trying unsuccessfully to outrun a cougar. The artwork represents ground transportation. At the end of the building, the fourth and final work by Pierre Bourdelle awaits. It shows man's attempt to tame horses in the same manner he has tamed water. Symbolizing water transportation, the art is displayed on a wall behind an anchor stationed on a concrete base. The anchor was given by the United States Navy in 1971 to show thanks for the State Fair's continued support.